Hi, my name is Ryan Freeman, and you are watching a book review of John Thomas and Lady Jane. That's this book right here, by one of my favorite authors, English author who was very famous 100 years ago. His picture is right here. His name was D.H. Lawrence, and one of the things I love about D.H. Lawrence is that he writes with passion and life and humor. Passion, life, and humor. 3 ingredients to enjoying yourself. D.H. Lawrence captures me on page 1 all the way to the end. His psychological perspicacity, his insight into how we think and behave, the various kinds of us, that is. Some of us very sensual. We just follow our bodily passions. Some of us highly spiritual. We don't even know we have a body. And everyone in between. D.H. Lawrence is a fantastic author. Whether you pick up this book or any of his other books or his short stories, I highly recommend you do. Good friends with Aldous Huxley, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to know all that, do you? Anyways, John Thomas and Lady Jane. It's a book about a noblewoman, not so high in the nobility. This takes place in the early 1900s. There's still a class distinction in the UK. And the main character, Connie Chatterley, Scottish, nice woman, dutiful wife, good sister, good neighbor. She runs into a problem in her life, and the problem is that her health is fading. Her skin is losing its luster. She's not as healthy as she should be at her young age, in her 20s. What is it? Why is she's doing all of the things that are expected of a dutiful wife? She's got a very responsible husband, although there's a problem with her husband. It's an unfortunate part of life, but some people lose certain functions, and he has lost his ability to have sex. After World War I, after his damage from the war, he's no longer able to fulfill his husbandly duty. And they both go on the presumption that it's not needed, it's not necessary. They can just have this spiritual bond, and although they won't have children, they'll have each other. But it's not enough. And she doesn't even know it. Not until her father points it out and says, "You don't look good, darling. You need fun. Just staying in this spiritual, non-sexual marriage is not good for you, baby. Get out of this house. Let's have some fun." And he doesn't like her husband. So there's this family drama that happens. But she feels that she's not entirely free. She can't just leave her husband, not just because it's a marriage and she's a woman who wants to do the right thing. It's also some psychological entanglement, some forces of her will and her husband's will, as their lives are wrapped and twisted. She can't just break free and do what she wants. Really gets into the underpinnings of human relationships and how complex they can be. And not in such a serious way. There are some very delightful moments, particularly towards the middle of the book. Her husband gets a servant, a nurse, and they have a very interesting relationship psychologically that is quite darling and quite frightening, to be honest. So Connie ends up, I'm not going to spoil the story, but if you look at the picture, there is a lady's hat inside a sort of peasant wooden hut. And so she has some rendezvous there with a lover outside of her marriage. Talks about the psychology and the emotions of this infidelity, both on her and on the man she's with, but also the physical and emotional rewards that come from it. Sex was something that she needed. And she resists it. She tries not to. And sometimes, you know, we have a side that says, no, no, no. No, no. But then another side that says, yes, yes, yes. And sometimes those sides are fighting. And that battle takes place in a lot of us, in a lot of these hot situations. And so it really goes into detail on that. Actually, John Thomas and Lady Jane, John Thomas means penis and Lady Jane means vagina. Sorry to be crass, but that's what it means. This book actually was not able to be published in America and in England until well after the author died, and the rules were relaxed because it was seen as too graphic for the sensibilities at that time. However, it's not very shocking to today's sensibilities, so you won't have any problem, I guarantee you. It is a delightful book. There's a lot about politics, about class struggle, about philosophy, religion. There is a topic for everyone in this book. But ultimately, it's what is it to be human? Are we really just physical, spiritual? What happens when we have a conflict between our sensual and mental selves? What happens when we find ourselves in relationships that are no longer good for us? What happens when our health is failing? Not because the body is failing us, but our mind is failing us. And how is that mental health related to our physical health? It's good stuff. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching this review. I hope I didn't spoil the story too much. It is a darling story, and just also kind of a funny little side note, John Thomas and Lady Jane is actually Lawrence's second novel on the same story. So he wrote the same story 3 times, although each version very different. He didn't just change sections. He spent months and time apart and wrote them completely separate, completely spontaneously. It sounds strange, but it's pretty interesting. He wrote the first one called The First Lady Chatterley. Then later, months later, he wrote John Thomas and Lady Jane. Then months later, or maybe a year later, he wrote Lady Chatterley's Lover, which is the most famous of the 3. But all 3 are distinct. All 3 are... This isn't like a second draft. It's its own beautiful piece of art. And of the 3, I have read that this is the most tender. But I will get back to you after I read the other 2. Anyways, thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, put it down below. My name is Ryan Freeman. Thank you, and goodbye.